Hello and welcome to Cracking the Cryptic. Now today I'm going to take us on to some of the puzzles that I think make cryptic solving really worthwhile in the long run, where the puzzle builds up, you solve the cryptic clues, as we've been seeing on the regular broadsheet puzzles. Now they don't have a kind of end game, but sometimes puzzles do, or they have a twist in the solving. And I think in some ways this is the kind of the climax of what cryptic puzzles can bring you, a really good theme that ties everything together or something. And it's time, I think, to really properly introduce the Magpie magazine, which is a magazine for solvers of crosswords who like the listener puzzle or the inquisitor puzzle or the enigmatic variations puzzle. Those all appear in the various broadsheets at weekends in the newspapers. And there are some people who want a slightly bigger diet of those. You know, they may do the listener every week, but they'd like to have a little bit more to get going on once they've done that. So, following on from a magazine called Tough Crosswords, compiled by the rather brilliant Mike Rich, Simon and I, in fact, about 15 years ago, something like that, set up a magazine called the Magpie. And what you get if you subscribe to the Magpie is a booklet a bit like this. It's got a bit of an editorial, and then you'll get 6 puzzles and the solutions to a previous issue. I think it's very good value for, what is it? I think £35 a year. Actually, that might have gone up. I shouldn't give you out-of-date prices, but there we go. It doesn't cost very much. Now, full disclosure, that money does go to the editorial team, but in fact, the magazine doesn't make a profit. That money ends up paying the setters for the puzzles that get featured in the magazine, and then a little bit of it goes on one, a party for all the subscribers in London every year, and secondly, an editorial meeting every year. So I do benefit a little if somebody subscribes, but really the magazine exists just to furnish people who like that sort of puzzle with puzzles, and as an outlet for compilers who create this sort of puzzle. So I'm going to have a look at one of the puzzles from 2 months ago. So the solutions come out, and this one is called Man in the Middle by Eclog. Now, one thing the Magpie introduced is a grading system, where originally the intention was that an A grade was a little bit more difficult than a Times crossword, which doesn't really mean much more than if you can solve cryptic clues, you can get to the end of this. Like, you may have to understand a bit more about from a preamble to finish this than a Times crossword, which obviously is just about solving the answers in the grid, but there's nothing very special to it. So that's an A grade, but the puzzles go up to an E grade, and our original definition of an E grade was few correct solutions expected, and that would probably still apply. But a C grade used to be somewhere around a regular listener, and may still be not far from that, maybe a little harder. D grades can be pretty hard. We don't publish very many E grades, 1 or 2 a year, and they really can be pretty tough. So you don't really want to wade into those until you're ready. B grades can be very good fun. I mean, all of them can be very good fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at this puzzle, Man in the Middle by Eclog. Now, Eclog's a pair of compilers, in fact, who work together. And I will have tested this puzzle originally when it came in, so I'm not going to be solving this fresh. But what I'll do is we'll run through the preamble and show you what to look for, and then I'll kind of stop and fill in some of the clues so that we can see the puzzle as it advances, and you can probably pick out the theme at some point. But let's, as always, read the preamble first. 8 unclued entries, 2 of 2 words each, share a common link, 4 one way and 4 the other. Well, we don't know what that bit means yet, but we know that there is a link between the 8 words or the 8 entries that aren't clued in this grid. Their conjunction will provide the man in the middle, that's the title, who must be highlighted, 7 cells, requiring solvers to enter 2 letters side by side in the cell that is initially blank following completion of the grid. So presumably that means that 1 or 2 entries will give answers that don't completely fill the space in the grid for them. Numbers in brackets refer to the length of grid entries, so that probably means what's going on in those 2 or 1 or 2 entries. So what I've got is a grid I can fill in here on the right and the clues now here on the left. And I think what we'll do first is, there are types of clue that I think one can approach first of all. And what I'll do first of all is fill in the answers to the clues that involve anagrams. So to find a clue that involves an anagram, you really need to be looking for an anagram indicator, some sort of word that suggests rearrangement, drunkenness, probably an adjective. It could be changes, newness, originality. Just to have a very quick glance, I don't necessarily remember exactly what I'm looking for at the moment, but stormy in 14 across, that would be a word that could easily be an anagram indicator. Dreadfully in 11 down. Uprooting in 38 across. There may not be all that many. I'm not seeing sloppy looks like it could be an anagram indicator. I'm not certain which these are, but in a moment I'll invite you to pause the video, have a look at those, see if you can find any other anagram clues in here, and if you can solve them, great. If you can't, I'll be filling in the answers. So feel free to pause now, and then I'm going to put in the answers to the anagram clues, and then we'll look for another type of clue. So I'm going to come back in a second. So there we are. In fact, there weren't many, and I think I've actually weirdly picked them out just by kind of glancing over the clues. I haven't even read every clue there, but 14 had bearing with no G, and that gave us brine. 11 down, an anagram of estranged me. 38 across, an anagram of sacred trees. That's a bit of an and lit in the sense that desecrators are the people who might uproot sacred trees, as well as those letters being an uprooting, as it were, of sacred trees. And an anagram of siren at 29 down. So that gives us a start in the grid. It's maybe not a very big lead into it, but another type of clue that's certainly quite approachable is clues made up of things like initial letters or last letters in words, and they will very often be made very clear by phrases like initially, originally, at first, and then for the last letters, finally or ultimately. And what that sometimes gives you the first or last letter of a word next to that indicator word, but then other times it can give you quite a lot. So you might need to look at more than one word. So here we've got an originally in 30 down. I can see an initially in 34 across. And I thought I saw, yes, there's another initially in 21. Now, as I say, they might not be fully words that provide all the initials from the clue, but they might be. So feel free to pause the video, have a look at those, see if you can see any others, and I'll fill them in a moment. Okay, so here we are, and I've filled in 4 answers there. Now 30 down, originally you needed all the original letters of the first 5 words, and that gives us neum, which is also kind of defined by notes expressed using medieval euphony originally. 34 across, I think we spotted that initially. Again, all the rest of the words give waif, and again the clue possibly defines a waif, initially whipped, abandoned infant found. That's quite clever. Then didn't use the initially in 21 across. Maybe we'll get to that in due course. But in 17 down here, 17 across, the most westerly points in Tasmania, including elevated range. So the most westerly points in those words, meaning the letters to the left side, are T, I, E, and R. And a tier can apparently be an Australian word for mountain range. So that's the answer to 17 across. And at 19, there's intelligence info, and then primarily, same sort of word, the A and the L from ascending levels, and you get in foal, which is expecting for a horse. So again, those go in. Now there is one other type of clue that appears fairly regularly here, and that is the hidden. Now normally, I think the Times may even have a limit of only one per puzzle. That limit doesn't normally apply in other puzzles, and here in this puzzle I think we've got quite a few. So here you're looking for hint phrases like in is the simplest, but within or included or going around. And I mean here we've got, I mean, those, they're not so straightforward, those phrases, because they can also refer to something being put in something else. But I think there are a few clues here that really suggest that there's a hidden component somewhere within the clue. So I'm trying to point you to some covers, maybe. No, maybe not. Trapping, that might well indicate something hidden in the word before trapping. Component of could do. I thought there were a few, but maybe I'm not seeing them quite so clearly now. Maybe it's something you can find for yourself. But in a moment, caught in, that could well be something like that. In a moment, I'll fill in the hiddens and see how you did. If you want to have a look now at them, pause the video and study the clues, and I'll fill in the hiddens for you in a second. So there we are. I've put in a few now, and they included contains. That was a fairly clear hidden indicator. Lexicon or dictionary, and you can see the word Nordic in there, Scandinavian. Chap recovered covers. So the word recovered effectively covers the word cove, which is inside it, and that can mean a chap. And 32 across, acquired by. So the phrase nicotine addict has acquired a skin disease, which is the kind of slightly obscure tinea. And then finally I pointed out motorcade trapping killer. Well, the killer in this case is a killer whale, orca, which can be found in a motorcade, which is a quite frightening vision. So there we are. Those are the fairly accessible clues, I think, or the accessible types of clues. And we can either use what we've got in the grid now to have a crack at the theme, or to advance us on some of the other clues. So 20 down is one of the unclued entries, and we've got FR something N something something S. So anything you can think of that fits there might be helpful. We're obviously going to need to get grips on a few clues. One down, we've got 4 letters, but it is an 11-letter entry. So TIN something T something something towards the end. And I think 8 down is one of the uncludes. 2 down as well. 6 letters ending in IN. I mean, there's still quite a lot of work to do. So let's have just a look at some of the other clues. 34 down. Watery trail, almost followed by a Maori canoe. Well, a Maori canoe, we may not expect to know quite what that word is, but a watery trail can be a wake, in the wake of a ship. So that almost will be WAK, and then followed by A, so there's the Maori canoe. Remains caught in ligature. It looks like esque to me. I think there is a word AESC for a ligature, an old rune of sorts. But then I'm not immediately sure why why that would be right. 35 across, in advance, signal just at the right moment. So that looks like on cue, meaning just at the right moment. And a cue is a signal. In advance means give the word on. 24 down is another unclude. C something something R. That is ASC. Not sure I can see why immediately at the moment. Remains caught in ligature. Caught can be the letter C. Sorry, I'm not absolutely certain why that is, but I'll figure that one out in a moment. 22, lacking interest account. I'm buying the farm in Kansas. I think buying the farm is an American phrase for dying. Lacking interest account. I die is I'm buying the farm. So it's accidy, which is some slightly obscure legal term, possibly in Scotland, for lacking interest. 37. Spirit in these puzzles can be ka or kai. So I think this form of Buddhism is kaizen. No, Zen with kai. And kaizen is a Japanese style. I mean, those aren't easy. I mean, I have to admit that, but those are the answer. I think 27, calls up. That's evokes. Okay in Eves. 36, this is one of the uncludes. Something A, something D, something KE. See if you can figure out what would fit there. And you know, at any point one could suddenly crack this theme, really. Porpoise whale initially gets round occasion, apparently. So there is a whale that's SEI, and apparently can be AP. That can be an abbreviation for apparently. So this is sea pig with the say going round AP, and then G is initially gets, and a sea pig is an old word for a porpoise, I think. Or maybe not old, but unusual at least. 8 down. This is one of the uncludes. It's not a very promising set of letters. 9, expression of sympathy over Glasgow teen sporting a beard. Well, awned can be sporting a beard. I think that's of barley rather than anything else, and that's kind of awe over Ned. 15, Shrek classically is an ogre, and that's ergo backwards, so that's fairly straightforward. This odd word at 3 down. A piece can be a chess piece, with a rod being a long straight shoot. So in fact there is a king rod that is a roof piece. Some either eat now or at 4. Well, this is number 4, so here, that's another hidden actually, should have spotted that earlier. There are quite a few here, so here is the word there. And 2 across, screw that's clear. Well, screw can mean pay, and clear there could mean kind of the net pay you get. Bring in tar. It's a 2-word answer, and take home pay is net pay. Bring in can be, bring can be take, in can be home, and to tar a ship, there is the word pay has another meaning. It can mean tarring a ship. 10, salt starts to haul up. Well, again, there's starts to. So H and U are the the starts to the words haul and up. And a small child can be a mite. And I think humite is some sort of chemical salt. 12, hard cash in some quarters. It's lying in the ground. So we're looking for something that gets mined effectively, I think, there. And hard can, as an adjective, be iron. So iron is an adjective meaning hard, is what I'm trying to say. So I think this can be iron ore, and ura are cash in some areas, Scandinavia particularly. West African trees. I mean, the feature here is that some of this vocabulary is a bit unusual. Like, you really do need Chambers Dictionary on hand or another very good reference source. These ones are these West African trees. Oh, goes is as in urinates there, so that's opepes. We haven't got 6 down. In fact, 6 down's an unclude. M something, B something. 7 down. Aras are wildcats, so I think that's what's going on there. Anglo-Saxon is AS, and rye is the grass, and it's been sent backwards, bent back. And then 16 across is mythical beasts, indeed touring Alabama. Well, that's yes around AL, and Yales are some sort of Yeti type thing. 25 across, jock's ear, more gruesome with section missing. Well, an ear of corn in Scotland can be called an icker, apparently. So sicker, without S for section, is icker. And this is the one word that doesn't fit. I think we fit icker in there. And we've got this blank cell here. And that's the one referred to in the preamble. We'll go back to the preamble in just a moment. 26 down, large country. India is I in the phonetic alphabet, and administered is Ran. Oops. So we've got Iran there. And 28 across, rough gullets having swallowed most of a strip of flesh. I'm not sure. Oh, rough. I think it's granular. I'm not entirely sure why at the moment. Granular can mean rough, like made up of grains. Gullets is gular. I do remember that from a linguistics degree. And a rand is a strip of flesh. So gular has swallowed ran, which is most of rand. So anyway, I mean, those aren't necessarily easy. In fact, I think the A grade's pushing it a bit here. But that gives us this grid now. And the remaining entries, I believe, are all the 8 entries. So let's go back to the preamble. Just check what it said exactly. 8 unclude entries. 2 of 2 words each. Share a common link. 4 one way and 4 the other. Their conjunction will provide the man in the middle, who must be highlighted, requiring solvers to enter 2 letters side by side in the cell that's initially blank. That's there. So have a look at this grid and see whether you can make a connection between words that will complete these unclude entries together. And then that will give us something that allows us to fill in the man in the middle and complete this cell with 2 letters. And I shall start speaking again in a few seconds and explain what we should be looking for here. Okay, so what's going on in this puzzle and what the theme is. Now here at 8 down, C, pig and icker were right, but this gives us the peculiar PK ending, which almost can't be a single word. But if we separate out the K, the beginning bit could give us Philip. 18 across could give us Cressida, another first name. Francis, either with an I or an E, at 20 down, another possible first name. 2 down looks like Turpin. 1 down, you may be seeing the theme at this point, and if you are, you're probably going to be able to come up with Whittington there. And then Van Dyke at 36 across will fit with clever at 24 down. So let's fill those in, and then I'm sure you've seen what's going on here, and we will analyze what we've got in terms of that preamble. Here, the one I didn't mention yet is M blank BY now, so that's fairly clearly Moby, and Francis with an I there. So the connection seems to be Dick. We have Moby Dick, Clever Dick, Philip K. Dick, who's a fairly popular science fiction author, And I'm just wondering what the fourth one that ends in Dick is, because the point is that the other four begin with Dick. So we have Dick Van Dyke, Dick Whittington, Dick Turpin, and missing one of each now. Oh, Cressida Dick, Philip K. Dick, Clever Dick, and Moby Dick. Those are the four that end in Dick. Cressida Dick, I think, is a police chief. And then Dick Turpin, Dick Whittington, Dick Van Dyke, and Dick Francis. That is, in fact, a surname, the author of Racing Mysteries, and indeed champion jockey at one point. So Dick seems to be the theme. We have either Dick as a first name or Dick as a surname. So who is the man in the middle across 7 cells, requiring us to enter 2 letters side by side here? Well, we can see that Ick is the ending after that and Dick is the beginning. So if we were to complete the Dick at the beginning, we'd be getting a K. And if we were to complete the Dick at the end, we'd be getting a C. So if we put in KD, we get Dick Dick. I suppose we're positing a man whose first name is Dick and whose last name is Dick. So he kind of connects the whole theme, and he is therefore the man in the middle. And that's the solution to this puzzle. Quite a strange one in some ways, but it's one of those where as you get to the unclued entries, they do work in a way that perhaps one's not expecting to. Certainly, you know, you might expect to see 8 different Dicks or some other name, but you're probably not expecting 4 as a surname and 4 as a first name. In fact, if I'd asked you, can you come up with 4 something Dick names, you probably wouldn't expect you could. But Moby Dick and Clever Dick are fair enough. Philip K. Dick and Cressida Dick, I've heard of, a lot of people have. I mean, I wouldn't be very familiar with either of their work. Whereas I think Dick Whittington, Dick Turpin, Dick Van Dyke, and who was the fourth one? Dick. Well, those are slightly more in the vernacular. You know, one's expected to know who all of those are. Dick Francis as well, probably. So, very interesting puzzle. Quite good fun to solve. Some of the clues were, well, the clues weren't that hard, but the answers were quite recherche, if you like. But I think that's pretty entertaining. We'll probably continue and do some videos on the other puzzles in this edition of the magazine, and they'll be getting harder because the A grade tends to be the easiest in the magazine. And I hope that's entertaining. Hope to see you again soon on Cracking the Cryptic, and thank you for watching.